So I just finished watching Cub Swanson fight Darren Elkins, and I was completely blown away about how well Cub performed against the damage. At the beginning of the fight, you saw that usual feeling out process that we always see. Cub is pumping out some multiple jabs with his hands low, while Darren Elkins is maintaining that high guard and he's working off the lead hand, jabs and hooks. But the tone of the fight changed significantly at around 4 minutes and 41 seconds into the first round. It's at this point when Cub leans forward and puts the majority of his weight on his front foot. This stance, with his weight forward to the point where his back heels off the ground, is a pretty big indication that Cub wants not only for Darren to watch his right hand, but he's also loading up to counter. We've seen this stance before. If you remember when Conor McGregor fought Eddie Alvarez, right before Eddie got viciously KO'd, right before Eddie got TKO'd, or at least dropped by that 4-punch combo that's seen by everybody now, Eddie was standing in the exact same manner, leaning forward, toe off the ground almost, and he was telegraphing, hey, right hand is coming, which is a big mistake against Conor because he's going to counter you. Well, Cub did essentially a similar thing. He showed the right hand. Hey, look at my right hand. But what he did afterwards is what really got Darren in trouble. Darren bit on the feint. He saw that right hand feint and then slipped to the opposite side. So what you see Cub do is actually he pivots off his back foot in the opposite direction to replant his stance, essentially. He throws that jab forward, landing on Elkins just as Elkins throwing a jab of his own. Elkins is attempting to throw a jab feint into a hook. He's done it in this fight before, but he gets intercepted by this pretty quick jab coming forward from Cub Swanson. And because of that inside pivot that he does right before that movement, it makes it very easy to slip out to his right. And that's exactly what Cub does. At about 4 minutes, 37 seconds, Cub then throws an advancing hook into a cross at the same time Elkins is attempting to catch Cub with an overhand. But Cub's hook is already inches from Elkins' face by the time Darren starts motioning for the punch. And also the cross that Cub throws missed literally by millimeters. This punch would have done some serious damage had it landed, but it didn't. As Cub exits the exchange though, Darren throws a hook to catch him on a retreat, which also barely misses Cub. But considering the fact that Darren's right foot was still in motion, meaning that his base was still moving, he wasn't really planted in a stance, and the fact that he is now throwing in a parallel stance, just trying to recover from that sequence, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of power to that punch anyway. But either way, miss. At 4 minutes and 31 seconds during the next exchange, Cub feints towards Darren, which causes Darren to lunge forward with an extended jab. This is to measure for his follow-up overhand right. Given that the sequence started off with Cub's feint, Cub is well aware that something is coming forward. So what Cub does is he anticipates a reaction, gobbles back with both feet to throw a counter jab, which lands just as Darren is coming in. Since this is the first time that Darren has shot forward and continued that forward motion, Cub is not anticipating anything further. So what ends up actually happening here is Cub gets hit by that overhand as he's retreating. At about 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the first round, the exact same sequence that we just saw, the back foot inside pivot, it occurs again. Cub puts his weight forward, brings his right heel off the ground. We've seen this, we just saw this. He then pivots towards his inside while extending his jab and ducking towards the right. This happens just as Elkins is stepping into this deep, powerful lunging cross. This cross, if it lands at all, just barely skids past Cub's ear. I watched the footage a couple of times. It's pretty difficult to tell, but at any rate, it didn't draw any reaction on a Cub, so we'll just take it as a miss. At about 4 minutes and 14 seconds into the first round, Darren attempts the same jab lead hook sequence that he's attempted before in this fight, but Cub is now aware of this and he's made a clear read that it's coming now. So instead of using the same thing he had been doing, the inside pivot jab and then exiting to the right, what he does instead this time is he does that pivot jab, duck right, and then come back up with the jab. But because Cub threw the second jab instead of exiting like he normally does in the sequence, he's still directly in punching range of Darren Elkins at the end of this combo. So Darren Elkins decides to throw a right hand at Cub, which is only narrowly avoided as Cub exits. At 3 minutes and 54 seconds in the first round, Elkins steps in to throw a cross. Cub reads it accurately, slips on the inside of the punch while throwing an overhand, followed by a lead hook which barely missed. At 3 minutes and 45 seconds of the first round, Cub counters Darren's jab by lunging forward with a right hand. He then resets and gives him a very similar read, but a very different response. For this time, he's going to explode forward from the southpaw stance with his jab. He carries that momentum forward and it causes him to switch into orthodox as he's moving forward, and then he gallops forward from the orthodox stance into a lunging cross on a Darren Elkins who's already looking like he's had enough of this fight. Beautiful sequence. At 3 minutes and 15 seconds of the first round, Darren steps in with a long jab to the body and then gallops forward to throw an overhand. The first time Darren did that, he was successful because he conditioned Cub at the beginning of the fight to only evade that initial strike. He would step in with like a one jab, or he'd do a half step in, or maybe a small shuffle, but not really far. However, this time Cub planned on planting and countering, which caused Darren to be too close to Cub when he was throwing the overhand, which severely reduced his effectiveness. At approximately 3 minutes and 5 seconds, after giving Darren multiple different looks, Darren throws out a jab which Cub slips while throwing across. He then immediately hits Darren with 2 hooks to follow up. Although Cub lands with his wrists as opposed to the knuckles for that second hook, this stuns Darren badly. At this point, the fight is pretty much over. Darren does get back up. Cub lands a hook, I think, when he was on the ground. He throws a wheel kick, which just grazes Darren's face. But at this point, Herb Dean's seen enough, and the fight's over. Amazing performance by Cub Swanson.